Speaking Human.
Today on Speaking Human, we celebrate the latest bizarre celebrity brand pairings. We ride in a Dodge Durango with Ron Burgundy, watch Jean Claude Van Damme make a double impact for Volvo, and try on clothes made from Cool by Christopher Walken. Wowie, wow, wow.
Speaking Human.
Welcome to Speaking Human, the official podcast of Monsters Unlimited, a creative agency with a business brain. I'm Shad Conley, and I'll buy anything a celebrity tells me to. That's why I have all this Burt Reynolds mustache cream.
And I'm Patrick Jebber, and I love to drive backwards and hope that Van Damme will magically appear in my rearview mirror. Wait, that would mean I'm about to run him over.
No! This is your first time checking out the podcast. Each episode we discuss, debate, and review the latest buzz from around the marketing world. On today's episode, we explore the recent trend of offbeat celebrity marketing by taking a look at a trio of strange and unexpected celebrity-infused ads from the past month. So prepare to get weird and wild with the rich and famous. All right, Patrick, so let's talk a little bit about celebrity marketing. And by that we mean, the use of celebrity to sell a product in a campaign, to sort of the face of a brand, anything like that. It's the inclusion of a celebrity in what you're trying to do to reach people. Does this work?
Oh, Shad, I thought I'd share a stat that I have about this very topic. It's from the Harris poll.
Okay.
It actually polled 2,577 adults, and they were surveyed online, and it shows that 53% of Americans say that celebrities can make a large or some positive difference to the cause they are promoting.
Wow. I'm glad you just happen to have that stat sitting in your mind waiting for somebody to ask you about it.
It was like instant recall. I knew it without even looking at anything.
But that's pretty amazing. 53% say they do make a difference. A celebrity can sell them something. Not surprising, but kind of surprising. I always think this is pretty interesting because you see some commercials, like in the past, we talked about, some commercials that included celebrities. The one I think of that comes to my mind immediately is the Hot Pockets commercial with Snoop Dogg that we hated.
Yeah.
Thought it was just awful, atrocious. And, that's the kind of thing I say, just because you stick a celebrity in there doesn't mean people are going to watch it or care about it or buy it, And that's a lot of what I see. When I look at marketing, I see a lot of, they're like, well, here's a famous face. That'll grab people's attention. And that seems to be the strategy from a lot of people, and I think that's where it goes wrong. But that doesn't necessarily mean that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
These commercials, you notice the voices of celebrities, just the voices alone, and they say that's a good thing because people recognize that and latch onto that. Anyway, so that's kind of that's the trend we're looking at. That's what we're talking about today. Now we're going to sort of look at some examples of this in action and, give our reviews using our amazing ranking system: human, superhuman, or subhuman. Subhuman being the worst, superhuman being the best, human being right there in the middle. So let's start it off by talking about our first set of commercials of the day, Patrick. So anyways, our first one is Ron Burgundy delivers for Dodge Durango. And you've probably seen these commercials on TV. They actually shot like 70 spots as a tie-in with new movie Anchorman 2 coming out in December. It's just Will Ferrell in character as Ron Burgundy, standing on stage with a Dodge Durango. Weirdness ensues. Like I said, I think there's 70 different ones, and he just kind of talks about different aspects of the car, sometimes things that have nothing to do with the car. These ads have been, they say, surprisingly effective, and Durango sales are actually up. So have you seen these ads, Patrick? What do you think of them?
I'd love to know how they could tie back the commercials to the actual sales of Dodge Durangos, but I know people talk about this commercial, which is what I think Dodge really wanted from this fake celebrity promo,
Yeah.
It's witty, it's fun, it's feral, not feral cats.
I was going to mention, the thing I kind of like about it is what you mentioned. Rather than the celebrity itself, it's a character, a movie character, which is kind of interesting. Grabbed my attention. I'm a fan of the first movie, interested to see the second one. So it at least kind of, turned something on that I was interested to see where it's going.
Yeah.
That being said, we talked about for a minute there how connecting the brand with the celebrity. Is there any sort of real connection here?
Yeah, well, I think the commercial builds off that nostalgia that fans have of the Anchorman movie. But I think that's also its weakness. I don't think that everyone, for one, liked the movie, and many don't like Will Ferrell. I'm surprised at how many people don't like Will Ferrell. I mean, just in my own circle. Now, again, this isn't the nation as a whole, but I would say it's a microcosm of that. So but I mean, that's what you get when you choose a celebrity. You get all the baggage that comes with that and the way people perceive that celebrity.
Yeah, which is why it's sort of hit or miss. I'll go off on a side note here and tell you my, theory on comic actors. They usually have like a 5 to 7 year run where people love them. They have like a few hit movies. And then after that time, everybody starts to kind of hate them. Adam Sandler is a great example.
Yeah, they play themselves out, usually because their shtick is it's overplayed,
Yeah,
it's
the same thing. It's essentially Will Ferrell. I mean, different characters, different movies, same character more or less.
Yeah, it's like listening to a song over and over and over again all summer long until you don't want anyone to call you ever, maybe.
So anyway, what would you say, where's your bottom line on this? What's your rating? Superhuman, human, or subhuman?
I'd say I'd give it human. I thought that they were entertaining. They're not overly over the top, but they do have some wit and some charm to them.
Yeah, and I kind of fall in line with you. I also said human. I like the Ron Burgundy character. Honestly, these work better for me as a promo for Anchorman 2 than they do for Dodge Durango. I don't know that I learned anything about the Durango or it strengthened my desire for that vehicle at all, but it did catch my attention. So it's human for me. It's not a great brand tie, but it works.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's move from Ron Burgundy onto one of the greatest martial artists of our time, / actors, / just amazing humans. And that's Jean Claude Van Damme. Splits the difference for Volvo. Now, have you seen this ad, Patrick?
I would hope.
I always ask you too, but I always hope, but I never know. Well, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about how this one goes down?
Well, in this one, Van Damme, they start as a close-up on Van Damme's face. Van Damme is talking within his mind. And then it slowly pans out, and you see Van Damme is actually not just standing there, but he's standing on the edge of 2 semi-trucks. And the semi-trucks are actually moving backwards. They're in reverse. And when you pan out, you see that he's just doing one of his iconic splits between these 2 trucks up in the air. Its concept behind it is it's promoting Volvo's the precise steering of their trucks, which is a big deal for truckers.
There's also, I think, some like Enya or some sort of like new age music playing in the background, that kind of gives it a little epic tone kind of.
Yeah. So, going into the celebrity endorsement, again, I go back to, you have a little bit of baggage there in Van Damme. I would argue that people would say that he's one of the greatest Hollywood martial artists of our time.
Yeah, I should say that.
You should preface that.
Nobody thinks he would win in a fight against some of the world's
Bruce Lee,
greatest martial artists. I should say that.
Yeah, Bruce Lee would take him down. Anyway, but Van Damme is still, I think, hanging in there. And, going into just that resurgence of the old school action heroes from the 80s and 90s. Can anyone say the Expendables 1 and 2? I think that resurgence is what makes this commercial even possible. I think if those movies hadn't been coming back and people going to see them, they would have never asked Van Damme to do this. He's got this resurgence just like Stallone and Arnold. I'm really perceiving will be short-lived.
Oh, yeah.
But again, they're 15 minutes. They got an extension.
Well, it's the cycle. You work the cycle. You go up, you peak, you go down, no one cares about you. Then you kind of have this area of renewed interest. It happens to bands, it happens to actors, You wait like 10 years after you bottom out and people are interested again for a minute.
Yeah. I mean, people could come back. They can, look at Robert Downey Jr. He he's really taken a turn for the better, and he was able to build it back into a good career. But I think these guys, obviously, they have, this very short cycle that they're going to be able to bank on. So again, yeah, I just think there's some of that baggage there. So I don't know if it's good or bad. I enjoyed the commercial. I actually thought it was really well done. Very odd, of course. I mean, Volvo pairing with Van Damme, I feel like is whoever came up with the concept just went way, way off on a limb and was like, what if we did Van Damme doing a split between two trucks?
Yeah, it's a wild concept, to be sure. And that's why I was so surprised it worked so well. Going back to something you mentioned, in the intro when we were talking about this, it kind of has a lot to do with how you think about these celebrities, what your sort of attachment is. And, somebody like Van Damme, obviously for our sort of generation, who grew up on the kind of Van Damme, Stallone, those sort of action movies, there's obviously more of an attachment than a 75-year-old person or somebody who was like 10 at the time had to that kind of stuff. So that's kind of like a lot of these things are basing how they're targeting the product, what age group, what gender, that kind of stuff, how they're targeting the product. I don't know if that necessarily fits for Volvo. I just thought this commercial was amazing. I talked about, Burgundy caught my eye. This was something where I sat there sort of mesmerized for like just watching the whole thing, like every second. Like, what am I watching here? This is amazing. And it kind of fits. It wasn't totally ridiculous. They were making a point about the vehicles. That was pretty good. But it was probably one of the most interesting spots I've seen within the past year, no doubt. So where do you come down on this, Patrick? What's your final review on it? Superhuman, human, or subhuman?
I actually would give this one a superhuman in that the uniqueness of the piece as well as the execution of it. They did a really good job, I think, of pulling it together, making you interested from the very beginning, and then seeing that it's more than what it appeared at the very beginning, So it had this surprise ending, if you will.
Yeah, it's remarkably well put together. I mean, even the, like you're saying, they go from that sort of inner dialogue to then this new age music to then him doing a split, and you realize these trucks are moving down the road.
I read somewhere that he did that in one take.
So you believe it's real?
I mean, I could be wrong.
No, I've heard the same thing. I don't know. But I was watching it the whole time, and I'm thinking to myself, this can't be real.
You couldn't do CG, or you'd be like lying about what.
Yeah, it's a total scam. Yeah. But man, if your steering's not as good as you say, you kill Jean Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, right.
Like brutally kill him.
He'd survive that, I think, wouldn't he? He's survived many worse off explosions in his movies.
Yeah, he'd survive anything. And if not, there's always his twin brother.
That's right. They'll just bring him back.
Take two. Double impact reference. Anyway. So yeah, I'm also superhuman on this. I was mesmerized by this. It's one of those things that's so ridiculous you don't know how they pulled it off. The message works, the visual works, everything about it works in ways it shouldn't. It's amazing. Might be the best ad of the year. So from there, from a martial artist, we move on to an artist of another sort. The Walken sort. That was horrible. This is Walken Weird and Duds from Jack and Jones. Now this ad is it's actually a series of ads for, I guess, a Danish clothing company called Jack and Jones that features the, everybody's favorite weirdo actor, Christopher Walken. Christopher, are you here on the line with us now?
I'm here, Shad.
Awful. We like to do awful Walken here. So anyways, the concept of these ads is Walken not necessarily playing himself. He's playing the world's coolest tailor. The sort of message behind it is clothes made from cool. So you'll see like Christopher Walken ripping wool off a sheep, making it into a ball, and then it becomes a sweater. And he kind of just does all these sort of cool things as while just staring at the camera, creating clothes. One of them is just him knitting in front of a fireplace. Walken doesn't actually speak in his, characteristic voice that everybody recognizes. The ads are all silent. And they are presenting this clothing brand that I've never heard of. Have you ever heard of Jack and Jones before?
I have not.
But now you have.
I have, yeah.
So what were your thoughts on Walken for Jack and Jones?
Well, I think Walken has this very lovable quality to him. I don't know what it is, but you feel like you want to hug this guy. I don't know what it is about Walken, or give, just like hang
I
out
would
with
never
him.
hug Walken.
Yeah, well, he might, if
He'd
he's
stab
anything
you.
like, yeah, or maybe just hang out with him and be like, tell me everything about life. What is the meaning? Of course, we love him here at Monsters. That's
Big Walken fans.
Yeah, I actually wish we could get him to do a crazy video ad for us.
Oh yeah. He is a celebrity, unlike say Van Damme or Will Ferrell or something like that. Walken has he's one of these interesting guys. He's just been around so long, he becomes like a staple. Nobody knows why they like him. He's just this very interesting and unique guy who does kind of these strange things and just becomes a pop culture icon.
Yeah, and he's got such a, like you said, a very unique look to him too. The way he talks and the way he looks. He's a very unique looking guy,
Creepy.
Sorry. So I bring up the baggage, like I did with Van Damme, and I really can't find anything negative on Walken except that he's, kind of weird and quirky. Personally, I think he's a superb choice for any brand that really wants to get noticed. I don't know what their brand looks like before this, but I could say that there's a lot of people who didn't know what Jack and Jones was before, at least in the American culture, that do now because of Walken,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a good point. I liked how they put these together. They're kind of dark and strange, but I thought they did establish a brand I wasn't familiar with. It kind of established a brand for me to some extent on the tone of it. And I liked the clothes made from cool, the whole theme. Something the other two ads we talked about didn't have so much is I think to use a celebrity well, you have to kind of have that theme built in, what you're trying to get across and how you're using them. And so I like that they put that clothes made from cool and they made him like a tailor, and they showed this sort of Walken cool and used that in this weird series of ads that I think did a good job of establishing an unknown brand. So they worked it pretty well. If we're putting our reviews in, this was another superhuman for me. It just pushed up to that level. I don't know if I loved it as much as the perfect storm of Van Damme, but I thought it was well put together, and from a brand sense, probably makes more sense than all the other ones.
Yeah, I give this one superhuman too. And I look at it from the execution standpoint. I just think the ads themselves are just really well done. The director, the scenes are beautifully crafted, and there's a great amount of mystery and, a little bit of trickery in the video editing so that, like when he is making this shirt from a sheep, that's what's great about him. See, I just automatically fall into Walken every time I start thinking about that guy.
You just want to be walking. All right. So that's a good place to end. It's disappointing we went through all these and we didn't get to argue and be like, that's terrible. How can you think that's good? We agreed on all of them.
Sometimes that happens.
I know. Terrible. What a boring podcast.
We aligned perfectly.
So what are your takeaways here? What can we learn here, Patrick?
Well, like I said about the stat, a lot of people really are influenced by celebrities, and certain celebrities are known for having more star power than others, So if you're going to choose a celebrity, choose wisely. Not everyone will be able to land real celebrities, but when you do, try to get Walken.
I agree. Just get Walken for anything first. My main takeaway is don't just choose a celebrity for a celebrity's sake. You need to have a concept, theme, and message before your celebrity, not just, let's grab someone famous to get people's attention. I think that's when it makes thematic sense. That's kind of when it works best.
I like that. That's it for today's show. You can listen to current and past episodes of the podcast at speakinghuman.com. You can also subscribe to the Speaking Human podcast in the iTunes store. iTunes. Email us with any feedback, questions, or inappropriate comments at ideas@thinkmonsters.com.
We'll be back next time with more marketing buzz. Catch you then, humans.
Speaking human.